The House Chairperson.
There will now be an opportunity for silent prayer or meditation. Please be seated. The Secretary will read the order.
Debate on vote number 16, Basic Education Appropriation Bill.
I now recognize the Honourable the Minister of Basic Education.
Thank you very much, House Chairperson, honourable members, and fellow South Africans. In every generation, a choice must be made to be a builder or a breaker. Builders roll up their sleeves, confront hard truths, lead and work every day to strengthen our schools, support our teachers, and uplift every learner. Breakers, on the other hand, sow division, undermine progress, and sacrifice the future of our children for cheap political point scoring. This budget is for the builders, those who understand that lasting change is not forged in the headlines, but in the classrooms and in communities where our children learn, dream, and grow. Therefore, I say this to the breakers: our children deserve better. If you cannot build, at least do not stand in the way of those who do. In the past year, we've laid strong foundations to restore the public's confidence in basic education. We committed to 5 key priorities. 1, expanding access to quality early child development. 2, strengthening foundational literacy and numeracy. 3, advancing inclusive education. 4, supporting teacher training and professional management. 5, improving school infrastructure, safety, and learner well-being. Over the past year, I undertook a national listening and learning tour, visiting more than 50 schools across all provinces and engaging with leaders and school communities. We have made real progress. Foundational learning remains central. A child who cannot read and write and calculate with meaning and confidence will struggle in every other subject. Informed by international benchmarking studies and our very own systemic evaluation showing that 8 in 10 children in South Africa cannot read for meaning by grade 4, we have launched a strategic shift to improve foundational learning. This strategy, endorsed by Cabinet, places focus on expanding access to quality ECD, early grade literacy, and numeracy. We hosted the Banapele Summit, where stakeholders affirmed their commitment to the 2030 ECD strategy. We intensified efforts to register more ECD programs under the care and oversight of education departments, aiming to register 10,000 ECD centers in the current financial year, especially in under-resourced areas. Sizimisele ukuqinisekisa ukuba wonke umntana weli ufumana ithuba lemfundo esemgangathweni besebancinci. Kuba siyayazi xa abantwana befundiswa kwiminyaka yabo apho bana 0 to 4 baye bagqwese esikolweni kwiminyaka eye ilandela. We are prioritizing the Children's Amendment Bill for introduction to Parliament in the current financial year to create more an enabling environment and a framework to enhance government oversight and support. At the same time, we are developing curriculum-aligned learning materials and national HR strategy to professionalize ECD. In the foundation phase, we've continued rolling out mother tongue-based bilingual education, training teachers in bilingual methods to provide quality support material. Abaphandi nobuchwepheshe bezemfundo kumhlaba wonke bayavumelana ukuba xa abantwana befundiswa ngolwimi lwabo lwasekhaya bayakhawuleza ukuze bazifunde kwamsinya izifundo ekuye kuthiwe zinzima ezifana njengezibalo nenzululwazi. The Funza Lushaka Bursary Program and teacher development efforts are being augmented to prioritize foundation phase teaching aligned to our focus on literacy and numeracy. We are reviewing the post-provisioning norms to improve teacher distribution and to buffer provinces against budget pressures. In addition, we are updating the national catalogue for grades 1 to 3 to ensure that learners receive high-quality curriculum-aligned materials. We anticipate that this catalogue will be in place by 2026 for procurement in the 2027 school year. Quality teaching is a great enabler of quality learning outcomes. We are therefore auditing all training and professional development offerings for teachers to strengthen the teaching of literacy and numeracy, effective classroom management, and professional management of our schools. On inclusive education, we've increased allocations for assistive devices and strengthened sector coordination. We advanced the review of White Paper 6 on inclusive education, work that will shape how the sector continues to build an adaptive education system that accommodates diverse learning needs. There's still much more work to be done to ensure that special schools and ordinary schools are fully inclusive spaces for all learners. Malunga National Assembly sayazi ukuba asikabi iphi eqinisekiseni into yobana abantwana abakhubazekileyo bayayifumana ithuba lokufunda as enshrined in the Constitution. Yiyo loo nto ke sifuna unyusa isantya salo msebenzi. We've made progress on infrastructure and safety, completing 97% of sanitation projects under the SAFE initiative as of today, and supporting provinces to eradicate the remaining unsafe sanitation facilities. We are reviewing the public infrastructure regulations to strengthen oversight and enforcement. This review will be completed within the year with public input. We have signed the new National School Safety Protocol with SAPS and begun developing disaster management guidelines for schools, especially following the Mthatha tragedies that claimed many lives and damaged many schools. We are reviewing the provincial school nutrition models to improve efficiency, financial management, and the impact of this program, because we know every day 9.7 million learners depend on this program for a meal, and we cannot afford to fail them. Furthermore, we've actively supported the sector in implementing the Bella Act, which came into effect on the 24th of December 2024. This includes the training of provincial officials, interim guidelines, and an extensive suite of draft regulations. The first two regulations focused on admissions and capacity will be published in the coming weeks for public comment, with further regulations to follow. Honourable members, predictably, the breakers will come to this podium and pretend that no progress has been made in this regard. The truth is, they seek to politicize the implementation of the Bella Act for their own narrow party political ends and not for the 13.5 million learners in our schools. And so I want to assure you, honourable members and people of South Africa, that I stand firmly with those 13.5 million learners. This work continues with pace. Even as we strengthen these foundations, we must address the challenges facing the sector, many of them fiscal in nature. The reality is that our sector faces significant financial pressures, especially in provinces where service delivery mostly occurs. Years of bailing out failing SOEs instead of investing in education have caused real harm. This has led to unfilled posts due to compensation ceilings, infrastructure backlogs.
Honourable Minister,
Yes, sir.
can you just take a seat, please? I recognizing the honourable member at the back. Switch on your microphone, honourable member. You pressed the wrong button.
Okay, yeah, now. So, sorry about rules there. Chair, I want to check if the minister will be accepting of taking a question.
Honourable Minister, are you prepared to take a question at this early stage of the debate?
If I was convinced of its wisdom, I would, but unfortunately,
The
I'm
honourable
not.
member. Please proceed, honourable minister.
These honourable members are the threats to the right to education. I have directed all provinces to submit credible financial recovery plans to be
Honourable
reviewed
Minister,
in
will
July.
you take your seat, please?
Yes, sir.
Honourable Mente.
No, Chair, I'm raising on a point of order. It can be parliamentary to be this patronizing and treating members with disdain, to say you are not convinced of their wisdom. That's an insult.
No, thank you, Honourable Member.
That is an insult. It must be unparliamentary and the minister must withdraw that.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I'll come back to that matter. Please proceed, Honourable Minister.
Not convinced of the wisdom of the question. And so these are the threats, Honourable Member, to the right to education. I've directed all provinces to submit credible financial recovery plans so that we can make sure that we are addressing vacant posts, delivery breakdowns, ghost employees, and compliance with funding norms. Provinces must ring-fence spending on teaching and learning, infrastructure, and learner support. No space exists for vanity projects. We are activating oversight tools available under the National Education Policy Act. When necessary, we will escalate these failures through intergovernmental mechanisms and indeed through Parliament. We urgently need additional funding for compulsory grade R, as is required by the BELA Act. We are unable to secure additional funding from National Treasury for this important undertaking, meaning that provinces must fund this within their allocated budgets. We look to Treasury to secure additional funding to ensure universal grade R access. In the coming weeks, I'll be constituting an advisory body, the National Education and Training Council, to advise me on matters including school resourcing, teacher workloads, progression and promotion requirements. Whether the pass mark should be 30, 40, or 50%, in which subjects, it must be subjected to well-researched process of experts and not feel-good statements shouted from rooftops and Twitter streets. We must be responsible with the curriculum of our children. And this is what it means to be a builder, honourable members. We act with discipline, we act with agility and the purpose in the face of constraint, protecting children's education at all costs. This year's budget is a signal of our continued commitment to these investments. The Department of Basic Education receives a total budget of 35 billion rand, an increase from last year. Resources are focused on where the greatest need is and the greatest impact will be in the 5 national priorities. The ECD conditional grant therefore increases to 1.7 billion rand, with over 230 million rand of that allocated to the ECD nutrition pilot and 162 million rand set aside for ECD infrastructure. Our goal is very clear. Every child must enter grade R ready to learn in all respects. Our strategy centers on foundational learning, ensuring that all children can read and calculate by age 10. Over 4.6 billion rand is therefore allocated to curriculum support and monitoring, which is an increase of 14%. Our 1.2 billion rand workbook program will continue to provide quality learning materials from grade R to grade 9, including Braille and adaptive formats. While workbooks support teaching and learning, they are not substitutes for quality teaching. So 57 million rand will be spent in the medium term to support learners who are not being taught in their mother tongue to roll out the mother tongue-based bilingual education program. Our message is quite clear. Reading is non-negotiable, and the foundation phase is where the battle for equity and excellence must be won. We will be building an inclusive system that removes barriers to learning for learners with diverse education needs. We will continue supporting full service and special schools through the Inclusive Education Conditional Grant and monitoring provincial spending on assistive devices, transport and teaching aids in the provinces. No reform succeeds without empowered teachers, and that's why we're investing more in their development. Over 1.8 billion rand therefore supports teacher training, mentorship, and leadership. The Funza Lushaka bursary scheme will fund over 9,000 students focused on priority subjects and foundation phase. Recruitment will prioritize candidates willing to teach in rural and high-need areas. Teachers are the single most important in-school resource influencing learning outcomes, and so we must continue to support and professionalize them. Learning depends on safety and infrastructure and nutrition, all of which is funded by this budget. 15.3 billion rand goes to education infrastructure grant, which will be used by provinces to eliminate pit toilets, expand classrooms, and repair schools. 10 billion rand will go towards feeding over 9 million children daily, while we are improving menus, delivery, and local sourcing. This budget reflects our constitutional duty and belief in education as the most powerful lever for transformation. And I want to say this to the builders, the teachers, officials, parents, civil society, stakeholders, and members of this House who remain constructive in their criticism. This budget is for you. To the breakers, I say, and I say again, if you cannot and you are not willing to build, please do not stand in the way of those who are committed to building. Because, of course, ours is about placing the interests of 13.5 million learners at the center of every single thing that we do. I want to thank the Deputy Minister, who remains my forever faithful co-pilot, the Director General, and our national, provincial officials, and our public entities, our teachers, and our stakeholders, and most importantly, the parents of the learners that we serve and the learners of South Africa. Thank you for entrusting us with the kind of work that you entrust us with. I urge you, my honorable members, as you consider your choices today, that you support this budget, not only out of party loyalty, but in service of the children whose future depend on it. Support this budget not for narrow political gains, but because you are placing the future of South African children first. If you care about the future of South Africans' youth, you will support this budget because it is the budget that will fund their education. Ndiyabulela, bye, dankie, and thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Order, Honourable Members. Order, Honourable Members. The next speaker is the Honourable Maimela.
Honorable House Chair, honorable members, esteemed guests, and the people of South Africa. It is with profound sense of purpose and unwavering commitment that I rise today to participate in this crucial basic education budget vote. This vote is not merely about numbers on a ledger. It is about the future of our nation, the dreams of our children, and the continued advancement of democratic gains we have so painstakingly secured over the past 3 decades. The African National Congress, guided by the timeless principle of the Freedom Charter, made a solemn pledge to open the doors of learning and culture to all. For 30 years, we have diligently worked to honor that commitment, from the dismantling of the Bantu education to the establishment of a single non-racial education system. We have fundamentally transformed the landscape of learning in South Africa. Millions of children previously denied access to quality education now sit in classrooms equipped with textbooks and taught by dedicated teachers. This is not a mere rhetoric. It is a tangible, measurable success story that stands as a testament to the ANC's unwavering dedication to its people. We have expanded access, built schools, and provided opportunities that were once unimaginable for the majority. This progress is an imperative we must defend and advance with every fiber of our being. Honorable House Chair, the budget before us today reflects the ANC government's continued responsiveness to the critical needs of our education sector. We have seen significant allocation directed towards foundational pillars of learning, such as the integration of ECD into the Department of Basic Education, which is a landmark achievement rooted in the acknowledgement that the earliest years are the most crucial for cognitive and social development. Our budget prioritizes expanding access to quality ECD, ensuring that every child, irregardless of their socioeconomic background, gets a strong start. We recognize that teachers are a backbone of our education system. This budget continues to support teacher development, training, and welfare, ensuring that our educators are well equipped and motivated to nurture the next generation. The Funza Lushaka Bursary Scheme remains a beacon of hope, attracting talented young individuals to the teaching profession, particularly in critical subjects. This investment directly addresses historical imbalances and ensures a pipeline of a qualified teacher for all our schools. The above-mentioned, honorable members, is in stark construct to the ideological and policy orientation of some political parties, particularly the Democratic Alliance, whose policies often lean towards austerity and a reduction in public services. While they may speak of efficiency, their track record in provinces they govern often reveals a reluctance to make the bold necessary investment in education that truly transforms lives. Their focus of narrow metrics often overlooks the systematic inequalities that still require significant public investment to overcome. Honorable House Chair, the Basic Education Laws Amendment Act is a critical piece of legislation that seeks to democratize our education system further. We demand its full implementation, Minister. If you are indeed a builder, you ought to fully implement that act and the swift release of its regulation. This act is vital for closing the barriers that continue to hinder equitable access to education. The Bella Act empowers schools to adopt language policies that genuinely promote multilingualism and ensure that language does not become a barrier to learning, especially for learners whose mother tongue is not the primary language of instruction. This directly addresses the legacy of a system that privileged certain languages over the others. Furthermore, the Bella Act strengthens mechanisms to prevent discriminatory admission policies, ensuring that all children have access to school without arbitrary exclusion. While the ANC champions legislation that promotes inclusivity and access, we often see the DA raising objections rooted in a desire to maintain the status quo, even when it perpetuates inequality. Their resistance to elements of the Bella Act demonstrates a fundamental disconnect from the lived realities of the majority of South Africa. House Chair, our constitutional obligation extends beyond providing education. It demands that we ensure a safe and protective environment for our learners. The safety and well-being of our children in schools is non-negotiable. This budget reflects our commitment to addressing all forms of abuse, ensuring that our policies and programs are geared towards creating environments free from physical harm and emotional trauma with robust reporting mechanisms and support structures. We urge that the department should increasingly focus on the mental health of our learners, providing counseling and support services to address the growing challenges faced by our youth. House Chair, access to education is not just about having school building. It is about ensuring learners are nourished and can reach school safely and consistently. The National School Nutrition Program has been a lifeline for millions of learners, ensuring that hunger does not impede their ability to learn. This government should commit to expanding this vital program, addressing the growing needs in quintiles 4 and 5, ensuring that more learners from vulnerable households benefit from a nutritious meal. Similarly, expanding access to scholar transport is crucial for improving attendance and reducing the burden on families, particularly in rural areas and underserved areas. This budget allocates resources to expand this service to more learners, directly enhancing their access to education and ultimately their educational outcomes. These are not luxuries. They are fundamental enablers of learning. Finally, House Chair, at the heart of quality basic education lies the ability to read, write, and count. The ANC is unwavering in its commitment to improve literacy and numeracy in the foundation phase. We commend the department's inroads in rolling out mother tongue-based bilingual education and extending mother tongue instruction beyond grade 3. The positive findings from the pilot projects are undeniable. Learners who are taught in their mother tongue in the early grades demonstrate better comprehension, stronger cognitive development, and more positive attitude towards learning. We are now strategically expanding this approach even into critical subjects like science, technology, engineering, and maths, recognizing that a strong linguistic foundation is key to unlocking potential in all areas of learning. House Chairperson, the ANC's commitment to basic education is not just a policy. It is a deeply held conviction rooted in our struggle for liberation and our vision for a truly equitable society. Through this budget, we believe that we will build on and advance our democratic gains, including opening doors of learning, investing in our teachers, prioritizing safety, expanding access to vital services, and championing mother tongue education. I thank you, House Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable Mngadi.
Thanks, Chair. Today, the MK party stands to say vote 16 must fall because this budget is not for liberation. It is a budget of betrayal. A budget that keeps the poor trapped in poverty and denies black children their rights to dignity and future. This department loves to talk about digitization, schooling 2030, and transformation. But outside this world, our children still learn under trees, in school with collapsing roof and used pit toilet. Let's tell the truth. In the Eastern Cape alone, 1,168 schools still have unsafe sanitation. In Limpopo, over 440 schools awanawo amanzi ahlanzekile. These are not the old figures. These are the department's own numbers in 2025. Yet in 2025, the department left 620 million infrastructure grant unspent, and 2.8 billion meant for school infrastructure was divided to disaster relief. Ikuphi inqubekela phambili lana? Case in point, Makawula Senior Secondary School. In early 2024, the classroom roof collapsed. Kwalimala izingane eziningi. This school was listed as a priority since 2022. Kodwa akukho nasinye isitini esabekwa kuze kube yimanje. Isizwe sibhiqa ngodaka emehlweni siyakhohliswa. Honorable members, the AGSA reports painting the same picture every year. Rollovers, underspending, and broken infrastructure promises. This department, iti, is preparing for a digital future. Izikole eziningi aziyazi intuthuko. Akukho ngisho ugesi okhanyisa. Kwakusebenzisa ke ama photocopy machine lawa lethwayo dolo lonke. Now, let's talk about the National School Nutrition Program. Asiyikhulumi ke nje eyokuphakela abantwana ezikoleni okukudla okunempilo kuyihlazo. Kwezinye izikole kunama service provider okuphela izinyanga ngezinyanga bengakhokhelwa. Kuthiwa bazothenga ngani labantwana bazodlani ezikoleni. The minister brags that over 9 million learners rely on this program in 2025. Isabelo sale program is 8.5 billion. Umuphi umehluko ozoba khona abafundi belamba abanye bequlekiswa yindlala uhulumeni ekhiphile imali engaka. This department loves to wave the matric pass rates like a virtual flag. That's both that 429 candidates obtained the NSC in 2024, and 60% of those bachelor passed are from quintile 1 to 3 schools. But let's speak honestly. Only 30.2% of learners passed mathematics above 50. In physical science, only 29.4% passed above 50%, which is a drop from 31.2% the previous year. This department's hard to the dropout crisis behind the pass rate because while celebrates a certificate, the APP admits that 49% of youth aged 19-24 who pass matric are NETs, not in education, employment, or training. For those who dropped out before matric, the NETs rate is a strategic 70%. Alukho uguquko olulwethwa ngenkohliso. Kuveza ukuthi kuphasiwe kube kunabafundi abangaka abaphuma ezikoleni ngenxa yokuhluleka kwesikhungo sezimfundo. Let's talk about educators. The Funza Lushaka Basari scheme placed nearly 9,900 teachers in 2025, yet provinces like KwaZulu-Natal still have over 6,000 teaching vacancies. In the Eastern Cape, those teachers waited up to 12 months for permanent appointments, while learners went without educators. Kunothisha abagraduate every year, bahlele emakhaya, abaqashiwe. Kodwa abafundi baswele othisha, ba-overcrowded emaklasini, ngesimo sokuswela othisha. In Gauteng, over 700 educators went unpaid for months. Sikhuluma kanjani ngemfundo enesiqu uma sisahlula ukukhokhela othisha ngendlela efanele. And what about the safety in school? In 2024, the country was shocked as a report image of principals and teachers arrested for sexual abuse in Eastern Cape, Free State, and Northern Cape. Yet, this department is silent about decisive action. Ukuvikelela izikole kumele ngabe kuhamba phambili. GBV education, ukuphepha kothisha nabafundi, i-department yenzani ngalokho? This vote is the betrayal of the national development plans. The NDP promised the safe school and equally opportunity. Kuyabonakala kuyothatha iminyaka engaphezu kwa-25 years ukulunga. It's promised universally early childhood development, yet over 16 million children remain excluded from register ECD center because the budget only covers about 950,000 children. Honorable Speaker, this budget falls short in every aspect. One, it's failed to fix unsafe infrastructure. It's failed to deliver consistent nutrition. It's failed to keep teachers in classroom. It's failed to bring a real digital access. And it's failed to protect children from abuse. Le budget ayibaseki abaswele iyingozi. Isiza abanezindlebe ezikhanya ilanga nezincelebane zabo laba bamnyama asebajika bayiGNU. Today we are calling for a general solution with allocation that truly benefits the people, not just a elite few. Asisho nje ngeqholo sithi le budget ayihlangabezi izidingo zemfundo eqotho. The MK part rejects vote 16 and demand the budget is truly worthy of the children of this country. Aqali vele uqhopholoza. Aphi amavote ethu? Kwacima imshini, umkhonto ugwaza, amandla. Ngiyabonga.
Order, honourable members. The next speaker is the Honourable Christians. Order, honourable members. Honourable Mkhize, your ongoing commentary is disruptive. If you continue with that, I'll ask you to leave the chamber. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable House Chairperson. Honourable Chairperson, honourable members. South Africa cannot afford another decade of promises without delivery in the basic education. For too long, the ANC-led majority government has spoken the language of change but walked the path of neglect. The result? Pit latrines decades after apartheid ended. Ghost employees consuming resources meant for learners. Infrastructure budgets returned to Treasury, literacy levels amongst the worst globally. This is not just a crisis of policy. It is a crisis of leadership, accountability, and political will. However, we stand at the dawn of a new chapter, with a minister at the helm who brings not only integrity but urgency. Minister Gwarube entered this office not with ego, but with open ears and a clear vision. Her listening and learning tour across all 9 provinces laid bare the failures, and she began correcting them. Under her leadership, 97% of pit latrines identified in the 2018 SAFE audit have been eradicated. That is real progress, not photo ops. The National School Nutrition Program was rescued from a 9.8 billion rand centralized tender disaster, halted before the rot could spread. Interim guidelines for the Bella Act have been published, and draft regulations on admissions and capacity will soon follow. Let us be clear, this budget is the first in over a decade that reflects a people-first, not a politically expedient approach to education. Chairperson, despite this renewed vision, we are under no illusion that the road ahead is easy. In fact, the real storm lies in the wake of 30 years of ANC fiscal recklessness. Provincial education departments are on the brink of collapse. In the Eastern Cape, 550 million rand in education funds was returned to Treasury in 2016. Mpumalanga returned 312 million rand. And in 2024, some provinces still failed to pay school allocations on time. Now, these same provinces cannot fill educator posts, cannot maintain infrastructure, and cannot keep learner transport running. These are not just technical failures. They are a violation of children's constitutional right to education. But under this new administration, a line has been drawn in the sand. The minister has ordered financial recovery plans from every province, as we've already heard, demanding action on ghost employees, unfilled posts, and underspending. Ring-fenced budgets for infrastructure and learning support are no longer optional. Accountability will no longer be negotiable. Chairperson, we are also encouraged by the firm policy direction laid out in this budget. Early childhood development is finally being treated as the foundation of our education system. With a target to register 10,000 new ECD centers in this financial year, we are setting up our youngest citizens for success. Literacy and numeracy are being restored to their rightful place, the center. South Africa cannot compete in the 4th industrial revolution when 8 out of 10 children cannot read for meaning by grade 4. Curriculum-aligned materials for grades 1 to 3 are being prioritized. Inclusive education is receiving long overdue attention. Special schools like Nokutula in Johannesburg, a state-of-the-art in concept, but decaying in reality, are finally under scrutiny. School safety is being tackled at national level through the SAPS DBE protocol. This includes visible policing, gender-based violence interventions, and disaster management guidelines. For the first time in years, district officers are being asked to account for how they support schools and not just audit them. This is not reform in headlines, it is reform for outcomes. Honourable members, Tuesday's ambush in the Portfolio Committee meeting exposed the desperation of those who cannot fault progress. So they manufacture distraction. We witnessed the Doomsday Committee members of the ANC, EFF, and MK turn the DA-run Western Cape and its MEC of basic education not because of failures, but
Order, honourable members. Order. Please continue, honourable member.
we witnessed the Doomsday Committee members of the ANC, EFF, and MK turn the DA-run Western Cape and its MEC of basic education, not because of failures,
Order, honorable members. Order. Please continue, honorable member. Order, honorable members. Please continue.
Not because of failures, but because they fear success. Let us compare. The Western Cape has the highest learner retention rate and a functional school infrastructure database.
Honorable
While
members, order, honorable members. Honorable members, let's give the member an opportunity. And if you interject, please do so in a manner that doesn't drown the speaker. I'm making a ruling, you can't instruct me what to do, honorable member. So let's continue with this debate in a manner that is befitting of the decorum of the House. Please continue, honorable member.
Thank you, Chairperson. While provinces like the Northern Cape are plagued by persistent infrastructure backlogs, unspent conditional grants, and financial mismanagement, where the Western Cape uses data to plan, others use it as an excuse for inaction. It is not a coincidence that when disaster strikes, from floods to administrative collapse, DA-led departments can respond while ANC-led ones appeal to Treasury with empty hands and empty excuses. Chairperson, in the last year, we have also seen the DA-led innovations under Minister Gwarube. The Safe Schools app allows citizens to report pit toilets and safety concerns directly. The Human Resource Development Strategy for ECD practitioners is being drafted. The post-provisioning norms are under review to distribute teachers more equitably. A review of White Paper 6 on inclusive education is underway, a long-neglected policy now finally back on the table. These actions reflect a department no longer content with paper-based progress. Let us not pretend that the GNU is perfect, but it has given South Africa one invaluable gift, the opportunity to break from failures of the past and move towards evidence-based governance. The budget reflects that the Democratic Alliance supports this budget vote, not out of loyalty to a person or a party, but because we see a clear shift from excuses to execution, from slogans to service, from silence to accountability. In closing, Chairperson, we owe our children more than memorials and apologies for pit toilets, broken textbooks, and ghost teachers. We owe them action, protection, dignity, and opportunity. To the Minister, we thank you. And to those still determined to weaponize dysfunction for politics, we say your time is up. The village is rising, the storm is passing, the children are watching, and this time we will not fail for them. I thank you.
Order, honorable members. Order, honorable members. Honorable members, order. Order. Even though a point of order was not taken, we must be very careful with the use of words when we reflect on fellow members of parliament and members of committees. The word doomsday is unparliamentary when referring to a member of parliament. The next speaker is the Honorable Shikwambana.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Let me take this time and greet the President of the Economic Freedom Fighters, the CIC, Silo Julius Malema, Commissars, Fighters, and the Ground Forces of the EFF. Chairperson, the EFF reject the austerity budget of the Department of Basic Education. The basic education system is chronically underfunded, and the so-called successes being bandied about are just a cover-up of a broken system of education. We have repeatedly questioned against the veneration of metric as an indicator of the success of the basic education system, because such veneration marks the deep-seated problems of the basic education in South Africa. Each and every single year, an average of 1.2 million kids register for grade 1 in South Africa. And yet, each and every single year, an average of 700,000 register to write for their matric. This means that on average, each year, the public basic education system loses about 500,000 young people who drop out of the school. The department does not know where are these children. We can only assume that they are going to swell in the ranks of unemployment, and also they are going to swell in the ranks of not being able to be employed, and swell in the ranks of prisons, and also become criminals. The principal causes of these problems are multifaceted, but that notwithstanding, the department must take the ultimate responsibility for inability to retain learners at school until they pass matric. In light of these problems, therefore, the proposed budget is simply insufficient to deal with the extent of the challenges faced by the public education system in South Africa. Rural and township schools continue to be burst by infrastructure backlogs, where there are simply not enough classrooms, not enough learning facilities, no laboratories, no computers in many rural schools, where schools in rural areas still use pit toilets. At Taung High School in Fitahomu, Tubatsi, in Limpopo, for instance, there's been no flushing toilets in the over past 50 years of their existence. Yet the same school produced 100% pass rate in the 2024 academic year. Nationally, more than 1 million children aged between 3 to 5 years are not enrolled in any kind of early childhood development and nutrition. And those enrolled struggle to go to these facilities because transport remains a huge problem in this sector. The lack of digital connectivity in many of our schools prevent a large majority of our learners from accessing a cutting-edge technology enabling them to learn. In your budget, Minister, there is no allocation for the internet and Wi-Fi to schools in rural areas. Yet you claim the budget to be pro-poor. Majority of our schools in the rural areas that have connectivity of any kind is only for administrative purposes. Minister, we continue to have a serious teacher shortages across the country. Approximately 15,000 teachers graduate annually. However, the demand is close to 25,000, indicating a significant shortage while your department prides itself of a budget that will continue to put our qualified teachers unemployed. But despite all of this, Minister, we still have thousands of unemployed teachers in this crown. Please make sense of these things. House Chairperson, the Minister come here and claim to have supported the implementing of the Bella Act. Which Bella Act? When the Department of Basic Education here in the Western Cape told the Portfolio Committee that for them to fully implement Section 5 and 6 of amended South African School Act, they are waiting for regulation from the Minister. From where do you get instructions, Minister? From the legislative instruments that are centered to your department, or from the racist leaders of your party? Please don't come here and claim to be implementing Bella Act, when in actual fact, you are the stumbling block of the full implementation of the Transformation and the Inclusive Act of our people. The regulations that you have just published, Minister, are thoroughly unlawful, and you know that you have received a script from AfriForum that they form part of these guidelines that you have actually published. Corruption remains prevalent in the basic education. A recent prime example is the purchase of laptops at an exorbitant price in Mpumalanga. Another example of blended use of public funds is the MEC of Education in Northwest, who spent over 1 million to Italy for Olympics, when a province was not even part of that Olympics. How do you expect us, in our right conscience, to approve a budget that will be managed by such careless and selfish officials? The feeding scheme tender is a fatal ground for corruption in the education sector, while learners' nutrition and quality of food for learners remains of poor quality. As the EFF, We call for the abolishment and eradication of tenders as they continue to enrich political connected at the expense of the poor with inflated prices that do not match the quality of food that our learners are eating in our schools. We therefore, as the EFF, reject this budget vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable Ngobo.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. Excuse my quote. Honourable members of the House, as a nation, we continue to grapple with deep legacies of inequality, especially in the education sector. The IFP maintains that no true freedom can exist without access to quality, equitable, and inclusive education. That is your mandate, Minister, to provide quality education. The Department's Strategic Plan 2025-2030 and Annual Performance Plan 2025-2026 outline several ambitious goals, including improvements in early childhood development, literacy and numeracy, curriculum delivery, and school safety. These are commendable priorities, Minister. However, noble intentions must be met with the institutional capacity, adequate funding, and implementation of accountability to truly shift the trajectory of our education system. The budget for the 2025-26 financial year of 218 million rand is an increase of 5% from the previous year. While any increase is welcome, we must also ensure that this increment is sufficient to meet the escalating demands placed on this vital sector. And furthermore, the IFP has always emphasized the importance of strengthening the early childhood development centers, ECDs, recognizing it as the foundational stage towards lifelong learning. Consequently, we are encouraged by the increased targets in the ECDs, or the ECDs will benefit from the approximate 1 million children who are accessing the registered ECD programs. Thumbs up for that. The development of an early childhood administration and reporting system is also a crucial step towards the better management oversight. IFP ngeke ibe nolunye ulimi kwiPhela Act ngqongqoshe. Ayisebenzi njalo. IFP iyokwesekela kakhulu ukuba kube nokufundiswa ngolimi lwebele. Angazi kunganakekela lokho. IFP ngeke ize iyeke ukuqaphela ngosolokhozi njalo ukunakekelwa kokufundiswa kweingane zika grade R zinike kunikezwe indawo ekufanele bakhokhelwe abenza lo msebenzi. IFP ifuna kubhekwe ukuthi kusiza ngempela yini isizwe ukuphasiswa kwabafundi ngo-30% ezifundweni ezintathu no-40% kwezine respectively, however you explain it. Minimum. Honourable Chairperson, the IFP believes that deepening inequalities in our basic education system, particularly between no-fee schools and their well-resourced counterparts, require urgent and targeted intervention. We call for increased investment in rural and township school infrastructure, reduced learner-teacher ratios, and strengthened support for educators, as these are essential steps towards dismantling the structural barriers that continue to disadvantage the majority of our learners. Furthermore, the ongoing interference of the officials of the Department of Education, but in particular, Honourable Minister, in KwaZulu-Natal, by the head of department, is not assisting the department. He continues to behave more like a union representative than a senior government official. And that is severely undermining education coordination in the province. And we call on the minister to urgently intervene and ensure that the HOD remains within its bounds and continue doing his fulfilling his administrative mandate and refrain from overstepping into union affairs. Therefore, let us be true to our words. We want to assist, make sure that learners receive quality education. And let us do just that. And in the light
Honourable
of
Member,
the
your
matters
time is now
highlighted,
expired.
the IFP supports the budget vote.
Thank you. Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable Peterson.
Thank you, House Chairperson. Greetings, honourable members, Minister, Deputy Minister, and members of the public. Today, the Patriotic Alliance rises in support of Budget Vote 16 for basic education, not as a rubber stamp, but as a call to conscience. We support this budget because we believe in the transformative power of education, but we do so with a firm demand that the department urgently addresses the plight of thousands of educators whose contracts have not been renewed. Across provinces, particularly in the Western Cape, over 2,400 teaching posts are being or were cut due to budget shortfalls. These are not just numbers, they are livelihoods. They are mentors, role models, and community anchors. Many of these educators have served with distinction, only to be told that their contracts will not be renewed, not because of performance, but because of fiscal constraints. This is not just an employment issue. It is a crisis of continuity in our classrooms. We cannot speak of improving literacy, numeracy while destabilizing the very workforce tasked in delivering it, Minister. The department's own APP for 2025-26 outlines ambitious goals, expanding mother tongue-based bilingual education, improving foundational learning, and enhancing inclusive education. But how do we achieve these goals when the experienced educators are being let go? The Patriotic Alliance calls on the department to audit and absorb qualified contract educators in permanent posts where vacancies exist, reallocate budget savings from underspent infrastructure grants to retain the critical teaching staff, and engage with provincial departments to explore co-funding models and donor partnerships. We must act swiftly. The longer we delay, the more learners will suffer from overcrowded classrooms, inconsistent teaching, and diminished outcomes. Section 29 of our Constitution guarantees the right to basic education. The right is hollow without educators in classrooms. Education is not just a budget line, Minister. It is a moral line we must not cross. We urge the department to prioritize educator retention as a strategic imperative. Let us not build a future on the backs of discarded contracts. Let us build it with the hands of those who have already proven their worth. Honourable members, we support the Vote 16 because we believe in its vision. But vision without action is an illusion. Let this budget be the beginning of a renewed commitment to our learners, to our educators, and to the promise of a better South Africa. We support. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable Boshoff.
Honourable House Chair, Honourable Minister and Deputy Minister, I think we could call the past 3 years leading up to 2024 as the Bella War. It was the 3 years Bella War. Now, the Bella War has been won by the ANC using its last majority in the South African Parliament. And the President put his signature to it in a highly contested time during the December holiday. Presently, the Minister is drawing up the peace accords, and she's doing quite well. However, we must recognize and take into consideration that the election didn't have a result in which, let's say, the DA won the constituency of education and the Freedom Front won the constituency of correctional services and so on. The president is the ANC's president and is appointing to his cabinet whomever he likes. Therefore, it's not a good idea really to put one's trust into a minister who can be taken away from the post just as easily as he or she was nominated to it. Wat hierdie stadium waar ons nou trek met die hele Bella-wet en met onderwys nou eintlik doen, is om vir mense te sê, gaan terug na die wortels toe en gaan vra jouself opnuut, wat is onderwys? Wat wil jy bereik met onderwys? Waarmee is jy besig? Is onderwys bevryding? Ja, natuurlik. Is onderwys die oordrag van kennis? Ja, sonder kennis is daar geen onderwys nie. Is onderwys voortsetting van die kultuurgoedere van 'n gemeenskap? Ja, dis ten diepste wat dit is. Onderwys is daar waar 'n gemeenskap homself herontwerp van jaar tot jaar, van geslag tot geslag. En daarom moet onderwys gewortel wees in 'n gemeenskap. Onderwys kan nie sonder kultuur bedink word nie. Om te dink daar's 'n objektiewe, oorhoofse, kultuurvrye onderwys wat jy gebruik om 'n nasie te bou in terme van universele waardes. Dit is net nie so nie. Dit werk nie so nie. Daarom sal elke skool 'n plaaslike kultuur, 'n eie kultuur ontwikkel wat uitdrukking gee aan dit wat daardie gemeenskap wil hê van die onderwys. Wanneer die onderwysstelsel dit nie doen nie, dan kry jy mens dinge soos tradisionele skole. Dis nou wintertyd in die Oos-Kaap en die berge is daar honderde, duisende kinders besig met 'n vorm van kulturele onderwys wat hulle nie in die skool vind nie. Dit is goed so en dit hoort so. Waarheen gaan ons nou met hierdie onderwys? Ek hoop ons gaan in 'n rigting wat die greep wat die Suid-Afrikaanse Demokratiese Onderwysersunie, SATU, op die onderwys het, wat daardie greep gebreek word. Die Volming-verslag het dit bevind reeds byna 10 jaar gelede. Uit anekdotiese verslae van mense by skole wat onderwysers sê, man, 'n SATU-onderwyser is 'n untouchable. Hulle kan doen wat hulle wil, hulle kom daarmee weg, want die kringbestuurder word deur die SATU shop steward vertel wat hy gaan doen. Ek hoop daai mag word gebreek, dat onderwys werklik waar die gemeenskap is, wat jaar vir jaar opnuut gebore word, versterk en verdiep en in staat is om die land met elke gemeenskap verder te neem. Dankie.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable Gobeni. Order, Honourable Members.
Good afternoon or good evening, Honourable Members. Chairperson, Batsongre Mama Tateng. Ake re tlogeleng di builders le di breakers. We are so confused because now the builders le di breakers di robala mmogo. We are just so confused. You know, this ministry, if there was ever a ministry that is an important ministry, it is this one. And this government has dismally failed to deliver quality education in this generation. This is not a crisis, Nje. It is a crisis of epic proportions. It is not only unfair, it is unjust that we have political leaders who remain more committed to their party interests than to the future of our children. Minister Gwahube, every single minister since the dawn of democracy has stood where you are sitting, making the same promises to replace danger with dignity. You did exactly the same thing. I will eradicate pit latrines by March 2025. Well, Target missed, deadline missed, another promise made, another promise broken, you've recommitted, that is fine. Today, our children still face the same deadly holes in the ground that have already stolen so many of our young lives. So while we're on the subject of headlines of builders and breakers, let me give you maybe a suggested headline. End the excuses and flush the failure. While our children need more, they get less. Per learner spending has dropped 5% since 2019. Every year we are told that our children cannot read for meaning. Worse still, a lot of them cannot read at all in any language for meaning. The numbers do not lie, Minister, and you've already said, and other colleagues have said, that grade 4 learners, 80% of them, cannot read for this meaning. I can attest to this because I have a 6-year-old nephew who attends a school called Mfundisweni in Alexandra. He struggles to read, and yet there's nothing wrong with him. There is something very wrong with this system. School buildings are crumbling. We know infrastructure budgets are cut by almost 30% since 2017. Pit toilets and bucket toilets still shame our democracy, and so our children continue to suffer. Minister, hear this today as I present Action SA's support for this budget. Only because without it, we cannot hold your tenure to the fire to end the excuses and flush the failure. Our support is not a blank check, it is a demand from every child sitting in a freezing, leaking classroom, waiting for the future that you all keep promising. So for goodness sake, fix the infrastructure, fix the governance, fix the spending, stretch the rand, and fix this one thing for the sake of our children. And finally, my colleague, Dr. Letlape, has called for every member to use the public service. And maybe finally, the people of South Africa should compel each and every one of us to use public schools for our own children. And maybe then we will once and for all end the damn excuses and flush the failure. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Members, before I call the next speaker, I just want to make a ruling. There was earlier point of order on a comment the Minister made for a question that was not asked yet. I've consulted with the NA table staff and the point of order is not sustained. I now recognize the Honourable Deputy Minister of Basic Education.
Ngiyabonga losesihlalweni. Ngifuna kusekela minister wami ngale budget ukuze le budget le ayibekile ikhuluma imela bantfwana labang more than 13 million. And masikhuluma nga 13 million kusho ukuthi sivele esikhulu kakhulu. Labo labashoko ukuthi abade ukuthi kwendekane kuyamangalisa ukuthi singaba njani ebantwana laba more than 13 million uma le system ingakhuli. Le system ikhula izifike ku 13 million nencumbi yabothishela nencumbi ema-official ngoba iyakhula le system. Angifuni ke ukuthi sibuke emva lapho sibuya khona ukuthi sibuyaphi ngoba lapho sibuya khona sibuya lapho besina 19 ema-department kodwa kwasina kufika i-democracy yawahlanganisa saba ne-department le-1 ye-education lenama-province lang-9 and akusingumsebenzi lo ungendiwa noma ngabe ngibani ngumsebenzi lomkhulu kakhulu okusho ukuthi kule 31 years kusetshenzwe kakhulu ukuthi sifike la sesifika khona. Sifune kubonga kakhulu ne-document leya adopta ngamnyaka lona 70 years ago ukuthi iminyango yemfundo ivulekele wonke umuntu ngoba ngaleso sikhathi bekufundza ingcosana and na government nasikhuluma ngebudget, ibudget bekhulumela ingcosana ingakhulumeli imajority yase South Africa. Kodwa le document leyo yenda adopta liya translate ku constitution. I-constitution yakhuluma nge-compulsory education from grade 1 to R. Lesifuna kubonga kakhulu mongameli welive nakasayina ibhela ngoba ibhela act beyenda ukuthi iletha i-total transformation kumfundvo yase South Africa. Lokusho ukuthi i-total transformation isho ukuthi bantwana bavuleleke njengoba ngisho ngithi i-constitution ivula from grade 1 to grade 9. Kodwa ke i-department ayizange igcine ngokubuka nethi ku grade up to grade 9, ichubekele yafika ku grade 12. Kanzi ke sekutawenda ukuthi na grade R abe compulsory. Botishera baka grade 1 bahole kusho le Bela Act lelethe i-total transformation eSouth Africa. Lokusho ukuthi njengoba minister asho ukuthi icale ku-implementa ngamhla ka-24 December. Kufuna vele si-implemente ngekuthi misela lokukhulu ngoba ivula iminyango yetemfundvo ngalokuphelele. Sibonge futhi mongameli welive ukuthi alethe grade R ukuthi ete ay grade 1 ECD wonke ete ku department yaka basic education kude kuthi nangabe sifundisa lo mfana simcale asesemncane kusukela le ecrash aqale kufunza kunokuthi simthole sekumele angene esikolweni. Kodwa ke nyalo sesinelithuba lokuthi simcala amncane simfundise amncane aze afike la se aqala emabanga khona. Leyo ukuthi ke bantwana bafunza ngekungavisisi ngilokuthi bantwana eSouth Africa kwaba nesikhazi la bafundwa ngetilimi letingasito tabo. Kanzi ke nase bafika kulibanga lesine ku grade 4 baba seku introducewa i-language of learning and teaching lesithiwa singisi. Semase siba assesswa ngalesingisi kanti akasengakasibambi lesingisi usasifunza usasisafika usamangele lo mntwana nasesingena lesingisi so bak-assessa nabak-assessa ngaso ngede waphumelela vele noma ngabe ngibani bangaku-assessa ngelanguage lengasiyakho. Kungako silitiko kumanje sibuke kakhulu ke ukuthi umntwana akafundziswe ngelwimi lwasebeleni ngeliswimi lamakwakhe akuna excuse la bafundziswa ngelimi lamake ngoba bonke laba kuthiwa benda kahle bafundziswa ngetilimi takubo labanye bafundiswa ngetilimi temave. So kungako laba labangafuni ke lebhela ngilaba basaphila kadzeni labasafuna ukuthi siphile ngokuhlukana. Kanzi ke lebhela iletha le total transformation ukuthi sonke sibantu kube ne transformation kube ne inclusion wonke umuntu kungabi nemuntu losalela ngaphandle kungabi mnyama namhlophe kungabi nasemakhaya kungabi nasemadorobheni. Kungako ke sine sisekela lebhela na minister wami ushilo emekhona la ukuthi uyayisekela. Minister wami ushilo amekhona la ukuthi uyayisekela lebhela. So imithetho ke imithetho ke leyacala ngalesikhathi kungena idemocracy.
Honorable DM, can you, Honorable Deputy Minister, can you take a moment? Honorable members, the rules of the House allow you to be in a position where you can talk, but do not drown the speaker. Do not make the speaker not be able to be heard. No, honorable members, no. The House needs to be orderly. The House needs to be orderly. This debate is very important. This is also, the viewers at home are also listening in. So if you drown the speaker on the platform, she's not able to convey or put her debate across. All I ask is as you heckle, do it in a manner that you do not drown the speaker. That is my submission. Continue, DM.
Ngiyabonga kungivikela lo sesihlalweni. Siyabonga sesisho ukuthi ke nasibuka ke ngalesikhathi kungena le democracy yaletha ukuthi ibuka emapolicy labuka labaphuyile pro-poor policies kungako kwaba nalendvo yeskola transport kwaba ne-national school nutrition program i-national school nutrition program yendiwa emaprovinsini ayikho central yendiwa ngema-province bantfwana bayadla njengoba minister wami ashilo asikudla 9 million yebantfwana labafidwa ngele system kanzi-ke nebantfwana bayatransportwa kanzi futhi sakhile tikolwa letivala letikolo letincane tasemaplazini ukuthi bantfwana sibafake kuma-boarding school nasingaya emaprovinsini sitakubona lokho ukuthi kuyenteka kodwa-ke ngeke kwenteke konke ngalanga linye lokusho ukuthi bantfwana basemaplazini sebaniketiwe litfuba lokuthi nabo baye etikolweni baphase bacetse bahambe bayoqeqeshwa ema-university kanzi-ke nakute infrastructure minister ushilo njengoba ngisho ngisiyamsekele kungako idemocracy yathi ukubona ukuthi kuhamba kancane lendvo ye-infrastructure yase ithatha le mali ithi yase yathatha le mali yathi yendani ke nine national department nge-acid ne-safe kungako minister nakhulumako la sesiku 97% ngenzaba yema-pit latrine sema-pit latrine sesingawakhuluma lama namba lesifuna kuwakhuluma kodwa-ke ngeliciniso nasingaya kanye kuthi inkinga singabona sikolo sinye sine-pit latrine sithi tonke tikolo tine-pit latrine kanzi-ke kwentiwe konke lokho sisebentile so kulena teacher support material yaqalwa lenzaba nga-2011 kubuka ukuthi akwentiwe tincwadzi leti tikhuluma ngelanguage yalabantfwana ngoba nakadzeni nasibafundisa ngeSiswati hayi ngeSiswati ngelwimi lasekhaya bekwenta ukuthi le incwadzi ibhalwe ngesingisi sesenta ukuthi leti ncwadzi atibhalwe ngelilwimi labo kwaqala lokho namanje ke njengoba sichubeka ukuthi abafunze ngelulwimi lwenina bebahlangene ke kulomnyaka lophelile wonke ama-expert la anjinja tincwadzi kutebuciko ikakhulukazi science and technology batinjinja tibhalwa ngelulwimi lwasekhaya kude kuthi kulomnyaka lo baqalile ke langena lwimi lasekhaya ku grade 4 kulomnyaka lotako luyaqhubeka luya ku grade 5 njalo njalo sekuya ngechoice yemtali ukuthi umntali ufuna umntwana akhe afundiswe ngesingisi noma ufuna umntwana akhe afunde ngelwimi lasekhaya kodwa-ke thine sithi umuntu akatigcabhe ngelwimi lwakhe lasekhaya umntwana akalifundiswe ngelwimi lasekhaya atakwati naye ukuthi ngoba buve nemasiko buselulwimini lwemuntu nangabe siba disadvantage ukuthi bangalwati ulwimi lwabo senda ukuthi bangabati buve babo bangatati futhi nabo ngaloko-ke sifuna kubonga i-portfolio committee kuthi ngaso sonke isikhathi nasivela portfolio committee iyasicondzisa inemehlo lawa mhlambe thine singawaboni babona tintfo leti litiko lingatiboni bese bayasichushisa ukuthi department bukani lokhu nibuke nalokhu sifuna kubonga wonke amalunga e-portfolio committee chairperson nelikomiti lakho siyabonga kakhulu sibonge kakhulu minister umhlahlandlela lo wendako sibonge DG wethu lohamba embili kuko konke kwenda kwe-department siyabonga kakhulu ukuthi asibambane njalo ngoba imfundo yemntfwana akusipolitiki imfundo yemntfwana kukhula kwesive kukhulisa sive sifuna kunibonga nonke malunga kuko konke lenikushilo kukahle sitawusebenta siyabonga
Asibonge sekela lemphathiswa sitawuchubekela embili kunesandla you are recognized on
Thank you, Chairperson. I just wanted for the record to really show that South Africans are indeed led by a government of national confusion. We're so
Remember,
confused.
that's a
We are
point
so
of debate.
confused.
That's a point of debate. Honorable member, honorable members, order, honorable members, order. I urge you, honorable members, raise points of orders and points of privileges in line with your rule book. That is grossly out of order, you know, Honourable Member. You had an opportunity to speak with your allocated time. Honourable Member, I recognize.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. Chair, Stella Umama Abe Minister.
Honourable Member, that's also not a point of order. It's a point where you are using spurious points of orders. I caution the House, Honourable Members. Order. Order, Honourable Members. Honourable Members, the House is still in session, and I urge you as Honourable Members to uphold the decorum of the House. Honourable Members, you cannot be conversing that loud. You cannot be conversing that loud. Maintain the decorum of the House, Honourable Members. You are Honourable Members. May you please then be honourable as you are. Honourable Member Ghana, it's your opportunity to speak.
Nakhenza mthoma isitulo. Holobye. Slava Magalia Bella, you implement wa fast. So that next year, this time, so next year, if I assess implementation if you can. Because Kabangwanyan Maga Bella is the original scene. Kabangwanya, to sir, Bella represents an original scene. Honorable members, this afternoon, I rise for the child who has to dodge bullets to get to school, only to face more dangers within its gate. I rise for the parents who send their children to school, believing that it is a safe space that will empower them for good future, only for the schooling system to fail them. I rise for the teachers and administrators who do their best every day, despite not having the most basic tools of trade. As Rise Mzansi, we are committed to building a safe, prosperous, equal, and united South Africa. Such a future is impossible while our early childhood development centers and schools remain war zones. We welcome the recent tabling of a collaborative protocol between the department and the South African Police Service on school safety. However, the content of this plan, as I've said, is not new. The dangers faced by our children are not new. We do not need new plans, we need implementation. And we, as Rise Mzansi, will continue to keep a close eye on the implementation of this protocol and hold both ministers of basic education and police accountable at every step. Rape, murder, and assault on school premises must become a thing of the past, Minister. We have also seen increasing reports, Minister, worrying reports of school children illegally taking part in sports betting during school hours. Honorable members, the age limit on sports betting and gambling is not a frivolous rule. It was adopted to protect our children, whose minds are still developing from the harms of sports betting and gambling. It is disgraceful that we have children who are already problem gamblers and gambling addicts. Their futures are dimmed before they have even had a chance to build it. We see this department to have a role to play in bringing innovative solutions to this problem, including through awareness campaigns and curriculum changes. Lastly, as I've said around the Bella, it's important that it gets implemented as soon, fully implemented, so that next year we assess it and not continue with these debates of it being used as a political campaigning tool. We can see them so much tool.
Kenza, Honourable Member. Honourable Member, my money is on your opportunity.
Honourable members, we hold this debate at a time where
I think it's important when the minister speaks about a budget for builders and those breakers to ask the question, what exactly are we trying to build? When we began with the inherent question of building one South Africa, we understood that underpinning that question is that there are many South Africas. There's a South Africa upon which if you've got money, you can afford a quality education. And if you don't, if you end up in quintile 1, 2, and 3, the probability is that in certain instances, your teacher-to-pupil ratio begins to exceed over 35 learners in the classroom. There is a South Africa upon which infrastructure is so poor that our young people have to swim to get to school. That may not all be exclusively a function of education, but if we really are to break the back of apartheid, it is about time that we begin to ask ourselves the question, how do we use this budget vote, how do we use education to ensure that we do build one South Africa? I hold the absolute view that the minister is on the correct track in raising the question that says we must invest more in ECD centers. The reality of it is that we can promulgate BELA, the funding thereof has not followed quite to the level that it should. But Minister, I'm here to challenge one notion, that if you want to continue with this assessment in the subject of 30%, you are going to achieve, in some instances, the outcomes that Verwoerd wants. That others are set up in an education system that will mean they are not only unemployed, but they are unemployable. We have to scrap this notion that you can pass a subject at 30%. You might argue it doesn't quite exist, but in truth, if you were to assess mathematics, physical science marks, economics marks, you'd discover that if you assess them at 50%, you discover that the average pass mark then decreases significantly. Our young people are not taking maths and science when they get to higher education. In fact, the numbers thereof are dropping off, which means we are preparing a future where our economy has already indicated that the one sector that is growing is the financial services sector, yet it cannot employ simply because we live in a country that's without those skills. Minister, your predecessor promised robotics in school. I would urge that we begin to introduce that because our kids have to be competing in an economy of the future. So therefore, I stand here today because I honestly believe that this is a moment. It's a moment we can reform education and deal decisively with the idea of empowerment in education. So, Minister, if you scrap the 30%, if you ensure that we fund especially poor schools, we can finally appreciate in South Africa the extrinsic value of education, which is not just about learning, but it's also about preparing young people for workplaces of the future.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Member Zungula, you are invited to take the debate forward.
Chairperson, it's Zungula, not Zungula. Mandibulele, ndibulise. The department is critical in building a future free from poverty, unemployment, and inequality. The core of the department, Minister, must be what learners are taught. It will never help to have a curriculum that does not speak to the needs of the economy, the skilling of the learners, including the mineral wealth of the country. History as written by us must be taught to all learners. The learners must be taught about the role our kings played in the fight against land dispossession. They must be taught about Robert Sobukwe, Mamuini, Steve Biko, King Sekukune, and other leaders who fought for this country. We must not be apologetic about teaching the learners about the evils of apartheid. Jews aren't apologetic about teaching their children about the Holocaust. Why should the department tiptoe around the issue of teaching all children about the real impact of colonization and apartheid? The education system must be skills-driven to ensure that by the time a learner leaves matric, they have a skill they can utilize to make a living. There are basic skills that must be imparted, especially digital skills, as they are in high demand. The issue of sports is critical, Minister. Not all learners are academically inclined. There must be sports programs like we had Love Life when growing up. Scholars' transport is another issue that must be addressed. It can't be that learners have to walk over 20 kilometers just to get to school. Currently, in Rhino State School, Ekowa in the Eastern Cape, learners have to walk over 20 kilometers to get to school. Minister, use the department as an instrument of economic transformation. Currently, there are companies owning over 80% of the market share of the school uniform industry. There is no reason why cooperatives in the different municipalities cannot be positioned to supply uniform in their municipalities. Cooperatives belong to the parents of the same learners. And even if the department provides food at school, but if the learners go back to hunger at home, it will affect their learning. Minister, we plead with you, protect abantwana abangama Nazareta who are forced to cut their hair in contravention of their faith. It is very disheartening that in schools, the faith of other learners is respected, but the faith of African indigenous spirituality is undermined. Hence, abantwana abanengulo are ill-treated and demonized in schools. This is a widespread problem where everything African is undermined and belittled. Hence, township schools, there is overcrowding, teacher shortages, lack of infrastructure, pig toilets. These problems are not adequately addressed in this budget. That is why you are rejecting it. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member Zungula. Honorable Member Thring, you are invited.
Honourable House Chairperson, the ACDP has championed the cause for education reform and parental rights in education. Today, this House will hear the lament of growing infrastructure backlog, with our classrooms being fuller and our teachers fewer, because we have a 129 billion shortfall. The education budget has been in consistent decline, and our spend per learner shrinks year on year. We consistently grow the incapable state at the expense of our children, and the poorer education outcomes in literacy, with poorer education outcomes in literacy and numeracy. Ons kinders kan nie tel nie, en hulle kan nie lees nie, maar ons spandeer meer geld om vir bureaukrate werk te skep. Every child without a quality education increases the inequality gap that exists in this country. The ACDP implored the President on behalf of the thousands of parents, civil organizations and children who participated in the Bella public participation process not to enact the then proposed legislation into law. Our contention was, and still is, that the legislation does not prioritize the needs of our children, and that it is an administrative act that gives jobs to cadres. It is a bureaucratic nightmare that prioritizes spending on the wrong priorities. What we need is to build more schools where the mother tongue of the learner is promoted. What we need is to employ more teachers to reduce the high teacher-learner ratio. In a country where the school dropout rate stood at 40% in 2024, this legislation, the Bella legislation, will punish parents for being poor. Consider this: how many disadvantaged parents does the state plan to put in jail because their children are not in school because of poverty rather than willful neglect? Criminalizing poor parents for being poor is not a deterrent to school absenteeism. Education reform is what the ACDP champions, and the freedom in education is a principle that removes the burden from the state and provides for innovation and education entrepreneurship that will improve our economy. This is the bridge, the education bridge, that we will have to build over the troubled waters of a broken education system, and to fulfill the promise that we as lawmakers and parents have made, that is, to build a better tomorrow for our children in this country. Honorable Minister, I also again wish to implore you in these few seconds that I have to honor your commitment to remember Joshua Peterson, a school pupil from the area of Marenridge that was stabbed and left paralyzed. Honor your commitment to intervene on his behalf. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. We now invite the Honorable Bodlani.
Bodlani. Honorable House Chairperson, Honorable Minister, colleagues, fellow South Africans, Dumela Mbagolo. Today, we consider an investment in our children's future. Honorable members, this budget is not about numbers. It is about creating a society in which every South African child can reach their full potential by being given an opportunity, a chance to succeed in life. Minister Kwahube, I speak with great conviction that when you took this office, you took on the good, the bad, and the ugly. But from where I am standing and what I have heard since arriving here today, you will be painted black for the sins of this department that happened even before your schooling careers. Gcina, Minister. So much could have been achieved if the young, educated, erudite members of this committee could make peace with their reality. Working alongside an equally young and capable minister, Xolani, comrades. Reality is that the DA is a key partner in the GNU. The pain of these erudite, educated, gifted members of the portfolio committee is that they missed out on political and ministerial positions. Xolani Maxabane, Pephisani Maxabane.
Honorable Member.
I regret to inform you that I cannot even tell you that next time, because the era of a majority of your political organization will not happen again. Xolani. Honorable Maimela, for your information, under the ANC government, my primary school in Muletsane, Soweto, where I was taught Tikologo, Dipalo, and Tsabudumedi, I'm not that old, that I would have been educated under apartheid. Honorable Maimela, that school where I was taught in Setswana, my mother tongue, was closed years ago. And children of Muletsane who could walk to school are now forced to travel kilometers because of this ill-informed decision to just go to former Model C schools, because the ANC failed post-1994 to have the wisdom to immediately invest in township schools. Honorable Mamela, you speak about provinces that the DA governs in. We govern in one province, that is the Western Cape. And in the Western Cape, you can ask the Auditor General, our governance and good governance speaks for itself. Our ability and willingness to build speaks for itself. Honorable Mkati of the MK Party, member, you were crying at the royal funeral. The basic education debate is not the place for you to cry about your stolen votes. The votes that you are crying about, you were crying at a wrong funeral. This budget is about empowering the people.
Hold on. Yeah. Honorable members, you are grossly out of order. You are grossly, honorable members, you are grossly out of order. You are grossly out of order. You operate and participate in this mini plenary guided by your own rules. And if you break your own rules, it means you do not want to participate. And I urge you to refrain from the gestures that you are making and also drowning the speaker from both sides. From both sides, honorable members, I am going to name you. From now on, I am going to name you, meaning you do not want to be participating in this debate because you cannot do what you are doing. When you are on the platform, you expect to be respected and you expect to be heard. Once you operate in the manner in which you are doing, it means you do not want to conform to the rules of the same house that you have adopted. Honorable member, you are protected and continue. The time, can you please just the few seconds that were, yeah, it's 30 seconds. Honorable members, order, honorable members, order, honorable members. It's well within her rights to request that her 30 seconds are readjusted. Honorable, 30 seconds, yes. Her 30 seconds, it's 30 seconds. It's 30 seconds, continue, yes.
The unholy friendship between the EFF and the ANC speaks to their failure to understand that their causes days are over. They are now elected public representatives. You are now MPs. You have sworn allegiance to this republic, and your friendship of convenience has been displayed today. Minister Gwahube, you are fit for purpose. Carry on. We are right behind you, and we support this budget vote.
Order, honorable members. Order. Honorable Shikwambane. Honorable Shikwambane, and I had indicated that I am going to name you honorable members because you cannot scream at the loudest of your voice and drown the speaker. I have urged you to conform to the decorum of the House, and that is what I ask of all the honorable members here. Honorable Member Lowe, you are invited to proceed with the debate.
Thank you very much, House Chair. As a conscious builder, not a pseudo builder, let me greet you and greet the members present. Honorable House Chair, honorable members, distinguished guests, fellow South Africans. The Freedom Charter that was adopted 70 years ago amongst its clauses state that as follows, open quote, the doors of learning and culture shall be open to all. This charter clause demands for free and compulsory education as a driving force behind efforts to expand access to education in South Africa. There's a significant and a verifiable evidence of the ANC-led government's good work towards achieving this apex priority. Although the ANC-led government has over the last 30 years significantly and continuously working towards attaining this clause in its entirety, we have a community of Ikutseng in Warrenton in the boundaries of Magareng municipality, crying foul to authorities for the construction of a second high school to cushion the pressure of overcrowding from Muhumutsi Secondary School that is responsible to cater for learners coming from 3 primary schools. It needs real builders, not pseudo builders. The current state of Muhumutsi Secondary School is not conducive. Visible signs of structural defects, malfunctioning and ablution facilities, inadequate computer center and school laboratories, which is designed for hands-on learning and experimentation in various subjects, particularly science and related fields. Hence, as the ANC, we support the budget vote on basic education. This budget vote stands for more than a routine allocation of funds. It reasserts the African National Congress' steadfast dedication to advance a just, inclusive, and high-quality education system that ensures every child is afforded the opportunity to thrive. As we reflect on the progress made, we must equally confront the deep-rooted disparities that persist across our schools, infrastructure, landscape. These allocations must also speak boldly to the urgent task of equitable resource redistribution, prioritizing historical marginalized communities in Taung, in Galeshewe, and in Bamberstad. It will ensure that every learner from the most remote rural classroom to the township corridor has access to safe, dignified, and conducive learning environments. It is only through deliberate and targeted investment in infrastructure that you can lay the physical foundation, meaningfully transformation. I know there are those who get irritated when you speak about transformation. The ANC stands that quality basic education is the most powerful tool we possess to break the chains of poverty, inequality, and unemployment. It is key to unlock the full potential of every South African child, regardless of their background or geographical location. This budget reflects our unwavering dedication to building an inclusive, equitable, high-quality education system that truly serves us all. Honourable members, A fundamental pillar of our commitment is ensuring that equitable resources allocation and robust infrastructure development. We recognize that a conducive learning environment is not luxury, but a necessity. Therefore, we commend the significant strides made by the sixth administration under the leadership of Mama Njimutehwa, who was the Minister of Basic Education, who could have made sure that we, at a time when there was complaints about pit toilets, out of 3,372 total of pit toilets, we are only left with 139 that has been overlapped to this financial year for the seventh administration through Minister Harube to finish the work that was done by Mama Njimutehwa. TENA made significant progress in ensuring access to basic services such as water, electricity, and sanitation in schools across our nation. While all of these challenges remain, the statistics indicate a clear upward trend in the provision of these essential services, transforming many previous disadvantaged schools into environments where effective teaching and learning can truly occur. This restores dignity and creates a foundation for healthy, productive learning. Furthermore, Honorable House Chair, the budget accelerates the efforts in infrastructure development. We are not just building schools, we are creating the future. The construction of new classrooms is a direct response to the urgent need to address overcrowding, ensuring that our children learn in spaces that are conducive to concentrate and engagement, not congested, but beyond classrooms. This government should invest in the sports and recreational facilities. These are vital spaces that can keep our youth engaged, healthy, away from the social ills that plague our communities, such as crime, substance abuse. A healthy body and a healthy mind go in hand and in fostering well-rounded citizens. Honourable members, the world is rapidly evolving and our education system must evolve with it. This budget underscores our commitment to modernizing education through comprehensive curriculum reform. We are preparing our learners not just for today's challenges, but for tomorrow's opportunities. And a key aspect of this modernization is the inclusion of coding and robotics in our curriculum. It is quite important, Minister. We need to know progress. How far are you with coding and robotics as included in our curriculum? This forward-thinking initiative equips our children, or will equip them, with critical 21st century skills that foster innovation, problem-solving, computational thinking, skills essential for participation in the digital economy. Not for you to say, when I was not here, what happened? It is for you to say, we are going to progress, we are going to implement the robotics, and how far? We are a minister now, we are no longer a chairperson of basic education, but the minister of basic education. Lead the department and take responsibility of anything as a collective and as a minister who understands the roles. Honourable members, our vision encompasses building a developmental, responsive, and labor-oriented education system. We are shaping our education system that not only impacts knowledge, but also cultivates a deep understanding of our history and prepares our youth for the world of the work. The reintroduction of our history as compulsory subject is a testament to our commitment to foster a strong sense of national identity, critically thinking, and appreciation in our rich heritage. It should be Afrocentric history that reflects the real primitive years that could have taken place during apartheid. During apartheid, there was segregation of schools where we saw a minority group having special treatment, having access to resources, limiting education to our black children and not making sure that they fall under an act. They came with an act called Bantu Education Act that made sure it segregates, it divides, and it gives our children limited education of religious, of what they don't understand of, while others were enjoying the benefits of the majority of the people, which is the minority forces who are the black people of this country. The three-stream model is another innovative approach allowing learners to pursue academics, vocational or occasional pathways, catering to diverse talents or career aspirations. At this moment, Minister, you are supposed to tell us how far are you to collaborate with TVET's colleges in making sure that as they leave grade 12, how ready are they to be absorbed by TVETs to demand and respond to the current demands of the economy as announced by the President of the Republic, which is your President, President Ramaphosa. Honorable House Chair, our commitment to inclusivity remains steadfast. This budget must ensure that our resources are responsive to the unique needs of learners with disabilities and special needs. We are committed to develop an educational system that values every child regardless of their abilities and supports in their teaching and their full potential. This includes early screening initiatives of identify special needs promptly, allowing for timely intervention and support. Furthermore, the government is allocating resources for specialized infrastructure and learning materials tailored to the specific requirements of learners with disabilities. This is about creating accessible and enabling environments where every child can thrive. As I conclude, I think it is quite important to assist the Democratic Alliance. We are going to the political ideological miscarriage we did to get into the government of national unity, or those who cared less about the motive for the majority of our people. It is what we are seeing in today, because a DA-led minister has imposed guidelines that were not even coming from HEDCOM, that were not even coming from CM, that were not even coming from all stakeholders. And we can tell Parliament today that the guidelines were rejected by the majority of our stakeholders, who said you need regulations because regulations are enforceable. We need regulations because regulations are going to align with the constitution of the country. We need regulations because regulations are going to expose the DA-led government department that wants our learners to give photos before they can apply for schools in Western Cape, because they want to exclude them, because they want to be special, because they are minority. Today, the guidelines of the DA-led the government of the Western Cape through the minister, they are excluding and they are making sure that they take the powers given by the Act and the law out of the SGBs, because they know that during apartheid 1994, they took every resources they had to the SGBs, they give it to them to run their schools, and that's why today Honorable Boshoff is confused. He's speaking about initiation schools. He does not even know that our initiation schools are not done in schools like those who are claiming that their cultures are in schools, whereas our cultures, we get them from our homes and we're going to make sure we embrace them at our schools. It is quite important that as we adopt the budget, we take decisive steps forward, building on the solid foundations laid by the previous administrations, and accelerate our progress, and we must unite in supporting the budget, because the budget is speaking about the motive forces. The budget is going to supply teachers learning trainings that are aligned to the economical demands. The budget will give learners material of schools with immediate effect, and the budget will respond to the deeply rooted problems that are confronting the villagers for them to get transportation. The budget will also respond to the long-term policy of the African National Congress in making sure that 9 million learners are getting food, in making sure that they are getting breakfast, in making sure they are getting lunch, and in making sure that they are getting medical attention. That this portfolio committee, united as it is, it has always embraced that there should be collaboration and unity in amongst ourselves to make sure that kids have access to schools, whether it's schools of quintile 4 or quintile 5. They are not special. Our kids can afford, and the Constitution afford them to go there. And we are going to start what the Western Cape as the portfolio committee to make an example, to make sure that all of the schools that have been excluding our learners from Kayalisha, from Inyanga, they include them so that the budget can benefit them. I thank you.
Order, honorable members. Order, honorable members. Honorable Minister of Basic Education, Minister Kwahube, you are invited to respond to the debate.
Thank you very, very much, House Chairperson, and I want to really say a sincere thank you to the members of this House for the debate that was constructive. Some of you were incredibly constructive in some of the things that you have raised. It is also clear from this debate that we can clearly see who the breakers and the builders are, honorable members. We can clearly see those people who are committed to building our country and those people who are intent on sowing division and who are intent on simply breaking down what works. And it's all right, honorable members, I can't help you with your chest pains, I'm afraid, and regardless of how much you may wish for a different outcome, I am your Minister of Basic Education. I'm afraid I can't help you. As much as I wish I could, I really cannot. But honorable members, we must always welcome legislative oversight. And that, for me, on a very serious note, is the importance of Parliament. The work of government can never go unchecked by Parliament. And that's why we must always welcome the scrutiny, being held accountable by yourselves and being asked the difficult questions. And I want to assure you that my department and I stand ready to make sure that we answer those difficult questions. And where we fall short, we will be able to account and say, this is where we have not been able to meet the standards. Because ultimately, in building this country, we have to work together in concert. We as the executive and you as the legislature. And so there were key things I just want to quickly pick out that I thought were incredibly important. Honorable Mgadi talking about the issue and the plight of grade R teachers. I want to quickly say, Honorable Member, that you are absolutely right in the coming into effect of Bella, which has now made grade R compulsory. We have to do a lot of work to make sure that those teachers who were getting a stipend are now fully employed by the department, but also have been upskilled. And that is work that we are currently doing, and it's work that we presented in the Portfolio Committee. You raised the issue around school safety. Again, part of the reason why we've signed the Memorandum of Understanding with Minister Mchunu and the South African Police Service to make sure that we've got visible policing in our schools. Honorable Shikwambana, I want to agree with you that, that austerity budgets and chronic underfunding is really undesirable. But at the end of the day, I'm sure you're very much aware that we are where we are because of decades of mismanagement, decades of underfunding of the education system. We are here we are today. We are dealing with an inefficient and an insufficient budget because of these kind of decades of years of mismanagement. And so what are we going to do? We can't simply put up our hands and say this has long been in the making. We roll up our sleeves and we say this is how we're going to do it. And that's why these financial recovery plans are so incredibly important, that provinces must look at their budget envelope and they must advise how they're going to make sure that they meet their demands. But I agree with you, it's an undesirable place to be in. But ultimately, this is how we must proceed. We must make sure that we don't falter on our desire to make sure that every single South African child has access to good quality education. Honorable Zungola, you mentioned a point. I want to also just make the point that, in fact, the signing within the Bella Act, Honorable Zungola, it would prohibit schools from forcing children to do and suppress their religious beliefs, like, for instance, shaving their heads, and as you raised. And so that point is something that we take very seriously and should be updated in the Code of Conduct in schools. Honorable Low, I want to assure you that the quality of your argument is not measured by how loudly you make it. I've heard you and some of the points that you have made, and I look forward to engaging further in the Portfolio Committee as we continue working together. But honorable members, I want to end by saying the following. The constructive criticism that we receive in delivering education is absolutely important. The lives of 13.5 million children in South Africa depend on the choices that all of us make here in this room, and the choices that we make about the budgets that we pass in this room. And so while, yes, this may be the political square where these kind of arguments are made and digs are made, I just hope that when the quiet is gone and that when the noise and the political noise is gone, that we can realize the importance of the work that we do here and why we must hold ourselves to a much higher standard than some of us have today. Thank you.
Thank you, honorable members. Malunga lahloniphekile sesifike emaphethelweni enkulumo-mbikiswano yeliphakelo timali yemfundo lengaphansi. Indlu yesishayamthetho ingasukuma ichitheke.